Good morning and welcome to this week's episode of In Focus. I'm Chelsea Birdsall. Today we're going to interview the three candidates that are running for the 1st Congressional District seats. Today, right now, we have Lon Johnson with us, and he is a Democratic candidate. Hi, Lon. How are you?
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't we just start with a really easy question? Why don't you tell me a little bit about your background?
Sure. I'm 45. I live just outside of Kalkaska. You know, working hard and playing by the rules and never giving up, those were the lessons and the values that I learned from a family with 5 generations of Northern Michigan history. Those lessons and values saw me through a life of work. I was one of the first in my family to graduate from college. I was in Iraq as a civilian in 2005, came home in 2006, and worked to invest in and grow U.S. manufacturing companies.
Very nice. And so why don't you tell me a little bit about your political background?
Sure. You know, what I'm seeking to do here is to take those values to Congress to do 3 things. One, we need to keep the UP and Northern Michigan both beautiful and profitable. We can strike that balance. Continued sustainable mining and logging, and at the same time, protect our natural resources, our water and our land. Second, we just need a better government. We need a government that's every bit as honest and hardworking as the people who pay for it, and that's us. We're not getting that. And, you know, we need people to go to Washington and work on a bipartisan basis to get things done, the same way that Bart Stupak did for 18 years here for us, and I'm proud to have his support. You know, that means campaign finance reform, that means trade deals that don't ship our jobs overseas, that means you know, making sure that we have a tax system that works, not just rigged for the millionaires and the corporations. But most importantly, what it means is, you know, we need to create a UP here where our families can stay here and succeed, where our children and our grandchildren don't have to go downstate or out of state for jobs or for educational opportunities. We can create that place. But we need to do a number of things. We need to invest in and protect our best assets, our people, our land, and our Great Lakes. Specifically, that means a number of things. We've got to protect what you've already earned. We've got to protect Social Security. You know, there's a real movement to privatize Social Security in Washington. I'm opposed to that. Sending our Social Security, what we've earned, what we paid into to Wall Street is just a big mistake. We need to make sure our veterans are protected and get the benefits that they've earned. But we also have to think to the future. We need to bring high-speed internet and mobile cell phone service to every one of our communities. We need to bring, I believe, a new SULAC here. We need to solve our energy problems here. We pay some of the highest rates in the country. We also need to create, I believe, a freshwater institute to show the world how to use and protect fresh water. You know, the same way that Stanford University created Silicon Valley or Nashville aggregated country music. You know, we have 21% of the world's fresh water right here. Billions, and I would argue even trillions in the coming decades will be spent trying to understand how to use and protect fresh water. If we can provide those answers to the world with a Freshwater Institute, showing the world how to use and protect fresh water, I believe we can create an entirely new economy here and protect our Great Lakes.
Absolutely. So it sounds like you've had a little bit of background in politics. I know you were the Democratic chair, correct, up until recently?
That's right.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about some of your job duties while you were doing that?
When I was chairman, your job is to, you know, up and down the ballot to recruit candidates and make sure those candidates are supported, to make sure that those candidates have the political infrastructure and the support that they need so that they can go out and deliver their message and win.
Now, one of your opponents, Jack Bergman, has called himself a political outsider. Do you think with your level of politic knowledge, do you think that kind of is an advantage or a disadvantage to your campaign?
Well, look, I'll leave Jack to make his own, you know, make his own case. But you know, what we need in Washington are people who are going to go there and get along on a bipartisan basis to get things done for the people of the Upper Peninsula. You know, the things that I'm talking about: high-speed internet, protecting Social Security, bringing a new SULAC. These are not Democrat or Republican ideas. These are problems that we face here in Northern Michigan that we need answers to. And we need someone to go to Washington and to get things done for us.
Now, you've been an advocate for shutting down Line 5. How do you plan on doing that?
Well, Line 5, you know, look, I'm not opposed to oil. I'm not opposed to pipelines. Pipelines are the safest way to move oil. We need to build more pipelines in our country. However, a 63-year-old pipeline in the Straits of Mackinac with those currents is not a good idea. There's any number of ways that we can go about doing that, but let's work with the oil companies. Let's work with the pipeline companies and find alternative solutions. You know, we can't just sit here and throw stones at private industry or individuals. Let's work with them to find alternative solutions, whether it's existing pipeline infrastructure or if we need to build a new one. Let's get to it.
Absolutely. And so another problem is kind of plaguing the area, especially here in Marquette and even in Escanaba, is a dark stores issue.
That's right.
How do you plan on helping local governments kind of figure out what they can do to move forward when they're, appealing all these decisions by the tax tribunal?
Well, it starts with putting elected officials in office that, the problem we have in our country and in obviously in our region, either it's in Lansing or in Washington, we have these PACs and these lobbyists and these lawyers and accounting firms that are going and making a case down in Lansing or in Washington that's counter to what we need. And our politicians are allowing this to happen because they're either more interested in where their next check comes from or more interested in their own reelection. And we need members of Congress and elected officials who will work for us and not for these PACs and lobbyists and so forth.
Now, switching gears just a little bit, recently the Empire Mine in Palmer was put in an indefinite idle and hundreds of jobs were lost. How do you plan on kind of recapping and trying to make those jobs stay in Michigan? Because a lot of them want to leave for Minnesota because they don't have anything here.
That's right. Well, they're leaving for Minnesota for a number of reasons. In Minnesota, they have government officials that are willing to work with the mines, willing to work with the mining companies, whether it's on power or tax incentives. The power issue is a big issue. When you have in Minnesota, they have, they were laid out a series of incentives to make sure that their mines were kept open. We need the same kind of government leadership here to work with our mines. In fact, I'll be over in Tilden here shortly to start working with the mines to understand how do we still have a considerable amount of natural resources in the ground. We got to figure out how to get that out and keep our folks working.
Absolutely. And so the Central UP did lose a little bit of revenue from just this one closing down, and who knows what's going to happen in the future.
That's right.
Is there any hopes to, getting that revenue back? Is there any plans to make that come back here?
Well, what we need to do, again, is sit down with the mines and ask them what did they need? What do they need from the community? What do they need from the state? What do they need from the federal government? And let's work to see if we can bring that to them. Mining is an important industry here, and we need to continue to mine and keep those jobs open.
Now, I'm not sure if you were, but last month Governor Snyder did make a UP tour, and he did hold a town hall in Munising, and a lot of the problems they were discussing were infrastructure. Do you have any ideas for solving the infrastructure problem, specifically here in the UP, even though it is a statewide issue?
Sure. Well, we have a number of infrastructure needs. Whether it's electrical, we pay some of the highest electrical rates in the country. We need to bring power generation here to the UP. We need to bring high-speed internet and mobile cell phone service. We need to fix our roads. We need to bring a Sioux lock. That takes a member of Congress to work on a bipartisan basis to get things done.
All right, thank you so much, Lon, for your time, and I really appreciate you coming on set with me today. After the commercial break, we'll be back on with our Libertarian candidate, Diane Bastow. Stay tuned. Welcome back to In Focus here on ABC 10. Currently with me right now is the Libertarian candidate for the 1st Congressional seat, Diane Bastow. Diane, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us today. I think we're just going to start with a really easy question. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your personal background?
Well, first of all, I've never ever run for office before. I never ever wanted to run for office, but the Libertarian Party asked me if I would. And I said, yeah, but you know what? I'm going to play to win. So anyhow, we moved to Gwinn a couple of years ago. I had lived downstate before. And we decided after traveling in the motorhome for 5 years, looking at every place in the country, that we wanted to live in Gwinn.
And why did you decide to live in Gwinn?
Because we wanted a small town where kids could play in the yard, and we had the best sledding hill in Gwinn right by our house. We wanted to live near a university town. We like quiet, we like rural. We like a place that has water to drink, which a lot of places in the country do not. And they're going to have, but we also don't want too much water. Like where I lived in Florida, they're having way too much water. And that's a chronic problem now, I think, with the change in climate.
Absolutely. So now we know a little bit about your politics. So you've never run before. They asked you to run. What made you like, yep, I'm going to go ahead and do it?
Well, as corny as this may sound, actually duty. I actually thought about it and I said, you know, I think I can actually make a difference here. I think I'm at the right point in my life that I have enough wisdom. I still have enough energy, and that I'd spent my time yelling at the TV like everybody else, and that it was time to get my act together and do something about it.
So before you got into politics, what kind of jobs did you hold, you know, when you were younger and stuff like that?
When I started out, I was going to be a teacher, and I was a teacher. Everybody my age will say, yes, girls went to college to be teachers. We didn't go to the College of Business. But I ended up liking business better, and I had several businesses, including a yacht charter business, and I taught sailing and captained a boat and that kind of thing.
Very nice. So you're up against a couple people here. What do you think you can offer to the position that Jack Bergman and Lon Johnson can't?
I am all about reducing taxes, not little tweaks here and there, but getting rid of enough of the federal government to actually save some money. The federal government is way bigger than the founders ever meant for it to be. They spend great amounts of money, and I would rather see that a lot of those functions kept at the states and just reduce the cost of the federal government. So I'm kind of going, I can't do myself out of a job because it's constitutional, but I would like to do us out of a whole lot of budget.
Absolutely. Now, kind of speaking on taxes, one of the things plaguing not only our community, but a lot of communities within northern Michigan, all of Michigan, is the dark stores issue. What do you think can be done about dark store issues?
I think that taxation should be equal, that nobody gets any special deals, whether you're a little store or a big store. It's about fairness. And so there should be no special deals for somebody that, if I built a house and it was the wrong house for my neighborhood, and I left, should I get a tax break? I don't think so.
Absolutely. And so another big problem plaguing all of Michigan is infrastructure. Governor Snyder was actually up here in Munising last month talking about it at a town hall, and they had a plethora of ideas. What do you think can be done about the infrastructure of Michigan?
One of the things I would do, and this is totally on my own here, that I think we should get the federal government out of highway business. They don't have any highways. They have DC. And we have interstates here, but we should just take care of those, and so they should not tax for it. They should not keep our money. We should tax for it and take care of our own roads, for instance.
Now, you're running for the Libertarian Party and kind of moving at a national level. Gary Johnson has been making some big waves, you know, climbing the ladder of success. What does it mean to have that national recognition for the Libertarian Party?
Oh, well, it's huge. I mean, libertarians have been working hard for years to keep libertarians out there, but until Gary came on the scene, it was just working hard. But he is such a rock star to me that I think it's going to really change. The two-party system is going to get broken up. They've kind of run off the rails and taken us with them, and they can fix themselves in time, but right now I don't think they can. So Gary's a big breath of fresh air.
So you spoke a little bit about the futures of third parties, but what do you think is going to happen in the next 20, 30 years for them?
I hope to see more parties. I hope actually that the Republican Party comes back as at least two parties, maybe three. I think the more parties we have, there would never be down to a two-person debate again. We have too many smart people in the country for it to just come down to two people. So I hope to see more parties.
Absolutely. And so what do you kind of think about the controversy surrounding, you know, let Gary debate and kind of stuff like that then?
Can you think of a reason that you wouldn't want to hear more people? What is that? And he is, I mean, he was on 60 Minutes last night. This is not a fringy guy at all. This is a mainstream guy that was two-term governor of New Mexico with a running mate that was two-term governor of Massachusetts. They have more credentials between them than we've had in years.
And so, kind of taking a step back, you and Gary kind of have a special bond. What's kind of going on between the two of you?
Gary is my first cousin.
Very nice. And so, is there some family proudness kind of going on there?
Oh, yes. I mean, I'm just ecstatic. I have my road signs next shoulder to shoulder with his road signs. I don't see the other two parties doing that very much. So, yeah, that's pretty wonderful that I can have somebody that he's been a mentor to me, and I'm terrifically proud of him.
Absolutely. And so you guys are fairly close, and you seem to absolutely support his position and whatnot. How does he feel about you running up here for District 1?
He just says, it's just wonderful. It's just, I mean, Gary's kind of a gushy kind of guy, you know, and he said, I'm just so glad. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So it makes me feel pretty good.
Absolutely. And so what's next? What are you doing for the rest of your campaign now?
I'm going to be in about 4 debates. I have some forum meetings around the state. The last couple weeks before the election are going to be really something, and especially for somebody that's never run for office. My husband and I were just talking about how to pace ourselves to get through that time, but it's also very exciting. When I'm campaigning, I'm happy and I have all kinds of energy.
And so November is coming around the corner. Are you getting kind of nervous as it's, you know, hitting day by day?
Nervous. Excited. I'd say excited more. I was filling out a questionnaire this morning. I was having the best time. Just the best time doing it. And when I'm out talking to constituents, that's the very best of all.
And so if you had to just put one message across to all the people listening and all the voters, what would you say to them?
We libertarians are fiscally very conservative. We are socially very accepting. I don't know what right and left means. If I'm in Congress, I'll work with anybody that is a truthful, honorable person. And there are good people in Congress. I want to find them. I want them to find me.
Absolutely. Do you have anything extra to add that I maybe didn't touch on?
Well, let's see. I'm just glad to be here and talking to you. I was really excited about doing this, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for staying with me and talking about all the issues that are plaguing you, Diane. Stay tuned, because next we'll have Republican candidate Jack Bergman right here on ABC 10. Welcome back to In Focus. I'm Chelsea Birdsall. Finally this afternoon, we have Jack Bergman, the Republican candidate for the 1st Congressional seat. Hi, Jack. How are you?
Hey, great to be here, Chelsea.
Awesome. It's so cool. So why don't you tell me a little bit about your personal background?
Well, I'm a Marine. Served for 40 years, retired at the rank of Lieutenant General, 3 stars, retired airline pilot from Northwest Airlines, small business owner in the medical equipment arena, grandfather of 8. So from the Western UP, waters meet, and I've decided that it's my time to step up again to serve the people, this time in a suit rather than a uniform.
Absolutely. And so you've talked a little bit in your past about having your ancestors been here since the 1800s. Can you tell me a little bit about that and where they were in the UP?
Well, they came from Sweden and Finland, and they were iron miners, and they came to Ironwood. My dad and all his siblings were born actually in the company mine clinic in the early 1900s. So that's when our family history started here. I was born in a small town south Minnesota, but started coming back to the Upper Peninsula 35 years ago and have been a resident here since 1998.
Very cool. So kind of switching gears a little bit, you don't have a ton of political experience and that you've never run for position. How do you think that just the general public kind of views that? Do you think it's a benefit to your campaign or a little bit of a negative?
Well, it's no negatives. In fact, if there was a year in recent history to run as someone outside the political party system, this is the year, because voters are frustrated, they're disappointed, and in some cases they're angry that their elected officials aren't getting the job done that the voters have assigned them to do. So for me, there are no liabilities here because I come with not only a fresh perspective, but a broad-based and experienced perspective on getting things done.
And do you think the public is pretty accepting of that fact?
They're angry, they're frustrated, they're disappointed. They want to see people who come from outside the political system, not someone who spent their entire career in the political system of either party. Doesn't make any difference. The results have been tremendously disappointing for the people because of that limited experience on others.
Absolutely. Now, looking at the points on your website, just the things that you want to get across, one of the things that you want to do when you're in Congress is to repeal Obamacare. Why don't you tell us a little bit about why you want to do that and how you plan on doing that?
Well, if you have any system, in this case the healthcare system, that doesn't provide the patient outcomes in an affordable way, get rid of it. Stop doing it. We are not able to provide health care to a segment of our citizens, a large segment, that they can afford or that the results they get from the care are achievable. Small businesses can't afford health insurance for their employees. What's wrong with that? A lot. Is it 100% broken? No. Is it 80+% broken? Yes. We need to repeal it, reform it, start from scratch, and then build it the way that our citizens can have health care in the end.
Absolutely. Now, another one of your concerns is the increasing debt that we've kind of accumulated in the last couple decades. How do you plan on lowering that and get us, not just lowering it, but getting us back to the green instead of being in the red?
Well, number one, it's not the revenue side of government that's broken. It's the spending side. We spend so much money on processes and in places, in the federal government especially, that no longer add value to what it is we're trying to achieve as a government. The waste, and it's not because people are necessarily doing it on purpose, it's they just got used to spending money in ways that no longer are affordable or, more importantly, necessary. So we have to go to a system, it's called zero-based budgeting, and that will take at least a decade to even make a dent in the wasteful spending, but it forces all entities with a budget line item to evaluate what it is they're doing that adds value or that doesn't add value. If it doesn't add value, that number goes out the window.
Absolutely. Another point you made, according to your website, is you are pro-life, which is a very typical viewpoint for Republicans. How do you plan on kind of making your point to pro-choicers who might be a little nervous about electing somebody that's pro-life?
I don't think they should be nervous about electing somebody that's pro-life because life is given to us by God. Life is precious. Life is not something, whether you're pro-life meaning in the conception, whether you're pro-life when it comes to supporting or not supporting the death penalty, whatever it happens to be. Life is a gift from God, and I will reach out to people to actually, if you will, if they'd like to be educated about what that means from a faith-based standpoint, I'd be more than happy to engage.
Absolutely. And so kind of switching gears once more, you are a veteran, and veterans have a pretty big place, not only in the Upper Peninsula, but all of Michigan. What do you kind of do to include more support for them, more financial benefits, more benefits in general with them?
I'm not so sure more is the right answer because the veterans all rate the benefits, and they're good benefits. There is a responsibility on the part of the veteran to get themselves into the system so that they can get the benefits. There's education on both parts. Michigan, as you said, has a higher percentage of veterans than other states. The First District of Michigan has almost double the percentage of veterans as other districts in Michigan. We need to make sure that the veterans understand and are able to get into the system so that they can access the benefits. We need internet capability to do that because most of that is done online. We need to make sure that the veterans, those especially with any type of problems that require face-to-face, have a place that they can go or a mobile system that comes to them as it travels around the district. But it's a matter of face-to-face interaction. In fact, this morning I was over at NMU and talking with student veterans and talking about veterans issues, and everybody has questions. The question is, how do we get the question answered to everybody's satisfaction?
Absolutely. And so another big point that you're pretty on point with is immigration laws. That's kind of what people just kind of think about now that Trump is very, against illegal immigration, all his plans for that. And so it kind of comes to minds when they think about Republicans. What is your take on immigration?
Well, a good immigration policy in this country involves three things. Number one, we agree on how many people we're going to let into our country on an annual basis. Number two, what is the criteria for selection to be let in? And number three is a set of enforcement policies that allow the first two to be enforced, if you will. Unfortunately, we cannot have open borders because there are people around the world, there are different entities that want to gain access to our country to do us harm. We see that, unfortunately, on a daily basis. We need to secure our borders, we need to know who's here, and we need to control the fact that we are a country that people want to be in, but we have to control who's here because we want to know why they're here.
Absolutely. You make some really great points with that. I guess just my final wrap up is, do you have anything that just one message to the voters when they think of your name, what you want them to think?
Yes. Perspective, experience, accountability, and the understanding that we have to work together to get hard tasks completed for the greater good of our country. Because if we don't do that, our grandchildren, which I have 8 of, are not going to have the world that was given to us by our parents and grandparents. And vote, please vote on November the 8th, because you honor the service of our men and women who have fought for that right to vote over the decades. So please vote on November the 8th.
All right, Jack, that's all we have time for. Thank you so much for coming on set with me. That's the end of our show today. Thank you so much for tuning in to In Focus, and we will see you a little bit later on ABC 10.